Are video games an addictive pastime?
Yes.
Okay, so we got the general tone of the
Good night, folks.
Yeah,
got
that's
the
it.
general
We're done.
tone.
Topic over. Good. Roll credits. We're out the gap.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you got sold some wonderful, wonderful items in our ads. But with that, I think it's about time we get into the main event. And that is the topic of the week, which we're probably going to have to do a stinger for. But I'm not going to hold you as I normally do to that, Shane and Aaron. Don't you worry. But we probably need to discuss this. But our question of the week, or our topic of the week, more accurately, is... Are video games addictive? Okay, the reason I thought that this might be a good one for us to start off on is because I didn't want to throw us a softball. I didn't want to say, like, what's your favorite game? Or, like, why are FPSs the same? Whatever it is, I wanted to kind of put something topical out there because I want to talk about these things with people, and this is the platform to do it, So in the last couple of years, 3 years to be perfectly accurate, video games have come up in the news a lot in terms of their addictiveness. Now, the reason being, and I'm 100%, if my eyes are looking away, I'm looking at an article that lists out all the dates because I'm a human being, folks. But in 2018, the World Health Organization added gaming disorder to their list of international classifications of diseases. Okay? Which officially means that in the eyes of the World Health Organization, video games are an actual real addiction in terms of their, requirements for such. However, key counterpoint to this is that the American, which is kind of the body for these things, to be honest, the American Psychiatry Association's manual did not. Now, this is where there's many schools of thought, both at home and in the labs and offices of those who study this type of thing. There's many schools of thought on whether this is true or not. What are the causes? What are the, measurements by which you can kind of judge whether somebody is in fact addicted to video games or whether they're just like me or you or anybody that's possibly listening to this that just really enjoy playing video games. So I want to open up this discussion now, and I'm going to maybe, because this is a new topic, kind of way we're going about things, guys. I don't know whether I should just say, Shane, what do you think? Petso, what do you think? Instead, what I'm going to do is, on this particular episode, I'm going to ask the open room, what do we think as a group here, guys? Like, what is your personal feeling if I say to you, are video games an addictive pastime?
Yes.
Okay, so we got the general tone of the room.
Good night, folks.
We got the general tone.
Topic over. Good. Roll credits. We're out the gap.
Now, I am also in the realm there. Gun to my head, I would say yes also. But I do think there is an incredible amount of nuance to discuss about it. And there's a credible amount of factors you can associate to it. So, I'm going to go to you individually just to kind of see what your thoughts are. So, Shane, do you want to start us off? Like, if I was to say to you, are video games addictive? You're going to say yes. But, do you have any follow-up to that? Or is it just straight up like, no, of course they are. That's just how it is.
No. Like you said, it is a nuanced topic. There is many different reasons. There's many different reasons why many people get addicted to different things. Mm-hmm. For me, a lot of addiction can boil down to the hit your brain chemistry gets when you do something enjoyable. Like drugs or alcohol or caffeine or smoking, or all these things spike the chemicals in your brain, usually dopamine or serotonin or something to that effect.
Yep.
And I would be a downright dirty liar if I didn't say that video games don't spike those chemicals as well.
100%, of course.
You know?
Yeah.
I agree with you. No, sorry, you finished.
No, that's my final point was that when you spike those chemicals, your body gets this rush of like, oh, that's amazing. This is so good. This is lovely. This is wonderful.
Sure.
Video games are doing this to me. Why wouldn't I want more of this? All it takes is for me to sit here and press some buttons and I get these wonderful chemical explosions in my brain. Why wouldn't I want more of this? Now, there is another thing that after we go around the room a bit more, we might get back to, is the design of certain games to attack those things. But that's a different.
I get you.
Not a different topic of discussion. It folds into this, but I'd rather go around and get more opinions before we dive.
We'll come back around to that.
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
Now, Petso, you had a point there, but I just want to say, and just to set the scene here, like, we don't necessarily have to, like, all of us get up on our podium one by one and make our statements. Do feel free to get involved. Do feel free to jump into the conversation to all three of us here. But, like, we're obviously not going to try and talk over each other or anything like that. We're not assholes. But, like, obviously, let's treat this like we're in a pub here and we're just trying to hammer it out. Like, we need to solve these issues, ladies and gentlemen. So, like, you're going to talk into it. You're going to have counterpoints. Yeah. So, like, don't be afraid to do that. But, Petso, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so I agree with everything Shane's saying. I think that it's a little bit more, though, as well. So, like, addiction is nearly like muscle memory. Like, so say, for example, you have to have your phone in your hand, and when it's not in your hand, you're like, where's my phone? You're like, that's an addiction to your phone. You know what I mean? You're looking for that thing that makes you comfortable, that makes you happy. You need it. It's like that addiction.
Habitual addiction, I think that's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think gaming is like that, where, like, you're at work and you're like, oh, I have to get home. It's not I want to get home and play a game. It's I have to get home and play a game. And I think that is the addiction. Yes, you're 100% right, Shane, when you were saying like all the more your brain opening up and saying I'm happy with this. But I think people can play games and have a drink and feel those things and not go, I need a drink or I need the game as well. You know? So
for sure.
I think it does come down to a lot of muscle memory, and I think it's real. I think it's nearly used as a way to deal with anxiety and depression, and I think it's like a safe space for people, and I think that's what they get addicted to as well. It's like I can sit on my own and I can explore this world that doesn't exist, but I love exploring it and learning about it and finding out more about it, and that takes you away from the real world and your real problems.
I think there is an element of that, all right. And like I want to stress here as well, we are talking about, I did pick a pretty controversial topic because it does touch on a lot of human psyche things, and our opinions are not really opinions. These are more our thoughts for a lot of this stuff, because, you know, we all have addictions of some sort, and we all have, like, you know, mental quirks of some sort that we can kind of touch base on, but we don't mean to make any sweeping statements on anyone. Everybody is their own person, and of course we can't judge your own individual things, but we are just going to speak about what we assume things are. But, like, it's interesting you bring up the ability to use video games for anxiety or to kind of create a safe space, because, you know, I can speak like on that 100%. Like, I'm very on my sleeve about my own social anxieties. Actually, podcasting and streaming and stuff has really helped me in a lot of ways, because it's really opened me up as a person. Shane will tell you, like, when we first started this, I was super nervous on the microphone, and I was adamant against, you guys can stream if you want, I'm not going to do it. And I'm the only one that went ahead and started doing it, weirdly. But it's funny, like, you know, these types of things do help. But I 100% do, and I do know a lot of people that use video games as a means of escape, where, like, I am having one of those days where I'm just shaking with anxiety and I can't explain why. I know my process. I know that, like, when that happens, I know what I need to do, and my partner knows that I need to do it when it happens, which is, I just need to go up to the room, I just need to put on a video game, and I take a lot of steps personally to try and make sure I'm not ignoring the issue. I'm working through it, but I'm doing it in a safe space of, like, Skyrim, or, like, I'm thinking about why I'm like this when I'm playing it. But it is used negatively or positively for that for a lot of people, and I think that could play into a lot of people's addiction, because if you rely on going to San Andreas or to wherever to deal with your anxiety, and if you suffer from anxiety a lot, and if you're not necessarily seeking professional help around that, then it becomes almost like a crutch, I would imagine, because I've seen it happen to me, to a lot of other people, you know, and that's a form of addiction there too, is escapism.
Yeah. 100%. I think like when we talked about this in depression, we came out with a positive like kind of outlook at it, and we were thinking, like, you know, it's a good crutch. It's probably a very healthy crutch to have if you're dealing with depression,
in comparison.
to the alternatives of, you know. And like gaming as a whole is good for so many things, you know, like your eye coordination and all the other things that you could list, the big list of things gaming is good for. So
sure.
It's not like you're sitting there and your brain is melting, or, you know what I mean, you're wasting something. It still helps you. It's still a very positive thing, but at the same time it has like one thing I've written down here is social withdrawal. I think it definitely does. It takes you away from social situations
100%.
And I think that's one negative I would say about it, which doesn't help. Like if you're depressed or suffering from anxiety, it's going to make that 10 times worse in the long run, because as like Phil, you said, like doing the podcast made you sort of step out of your box a little bit. Like imagine if you hadn't have done the podcast and you still wouldn't have got that confidence you have now, and that would have been a little bit, you know. I don't know, like for me, like another thing I'll say as well is, like when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of positivity around my household, right? And when I got my first game, which was Sonic, at the end of the level it says kind of like well done, you know. And I got addicted to that, because
to the praise.
I was getting positivity as a kid and as a teenager from these games, where I wasn't getting it in real life. So for me, it was a strong crutch for depression and stuff like that, especially in my late 20s, when, like, I remember my nan passed away, and I was very close to my nan, and when I actually went home and played a game, couldn't tell you what game it was. I probably wasn't really playing it, but it was just to take my mind away from the situation. It was only for an hour or two, and then back out to sort out, you know, the funeral and all the rest of it. But like, it was a crutch that I needed at that time as well. I do feel there's worse crutches.
There is, for sure. I remember in my late 20s having a similar issue where family member died, and a lot of other horrible things that kind of happened in a very short time period, and it changed me as a human, and it's actually what brought me to Cork. But I remember during that time period, I can't look at gameplay of Mafia 2 without thinking about that time, because I just played the crap out of that game. Like you said, probably not even paying attention to it, but just
you're running through everything else in your head, but you're playing, but your hands are doing something, and it's taking your mind off stuff.
And I didn't have the same mental faculties I have today that I could deal with stuff. Like, I was very shook at that time, and I just remember like using video games as 100% escapism. I do not want to think right now, so I'm going to play this crappy thing or whatever. Well, Mafia 2 is actually quite a good game, but but like, I get it. Shane, have you, like, in terms of addiction, like, and I know we have to tread lightly here, but like, I know your background as a teenager, you know mine as a teenager. We grew up together. Like, we smoked cigarettes and drank and did other things, and you know, in similar parts, and we understand for like what chemical and, you know, consumable addiction can kind of feel like. You know, not like heroin levels, but like, you know, cigarettes are probably like the hardest thing I've ever tried to give up in my life. I still fall off that wagon every time I have like a considerable amount of drink in me. But like, you know, when you think addiction, and for me, that's what I think of immediately. But to bring in video games into that conversation, it's one of those things where, like, when somebody says, "Oh, coffee is addictive," it's like, yeah, of course it is. It's something that you crave. Do you feel like video games, outside of dealing with depression and outside of like these, you know, situational addictive circumstances, do you feel like video games have that addictive quality where, like, you know, you wake up in the morning and you can't get on with your day without a cup of coffee or a cigarette or whatever your poison is? Do you feel like video games have that aspect of addiction?
I think for some people, yes. When you bring up that particular point, I think that comes down more to the person than video games.
Sure.
Do you get me? Because like, I'm like you said about, you know, some people just can't get through the day without a cup of coffee. I like to drink a cup of coffee on the days that I work, but I consciously do not drink it on my days off, because I'm just pottering about the house and stuff. I don't need that kick in the arse to get up and going for work and stuff, you know, because I'm lazing around, I'm playing some video games, I'm doing the laundry, I'm doing whatever, and I go like, no, I don't need the caffeine today. Yeah. Caffeine is a tool to me. It is a wake-up tool. And don't get me wrong, coffee tastes delicious. It's a wonderful drink. But like, I think
thank you to our sponsor, Nescafe.
I think it comes down to the person when it's with video games as well. You know, like, Like, I think that also comes back to that point of certain games, yes, are designed to hit those receptors better. Like the whole
It's a good
online,
time to touch on that, actually. Yeah.
the whole online gambling industry is like designed to ping all those lights in your head and make you go more.
Yes, and
Some games
Sorry, go ahead.
Some games draw from that for inspiration and go, how can we keep people ingrained in this system of, you know, keep playing our game, keep spending your 10 or 15 quid every couple of weeks on our game.
Yep.
You know, like your loot boxes popping open with dazzling lights and wonderful sounds, and then you open so many loot boxes that you start associating that little ping sound that the loot boxes make with something good. You know, this is a good feeling because I'm going to get a thing from my 5 quid or whatever. Like the likes of, I suppose, look, it was inevitable that the name Fortnite was going to come up at some stage in this conversation. And that is one of them. And as someone who works in the retailer who shall not be named, a lot of parents talk to me about Fortnite.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and they're like,
what the hell is this Fortnite?
Or they're in buying like Fortnite credit off me, and they're like, God, I wish he's at home playing Fortnite right now, and he's screaming at the TV in frustration and stuff. And I'm like, you are the parent in this situation. Like, pull him out of the bedroom or throw the PlayStation out the window. Whatever you need to do. But like, if you're in here buying the kid credit for like V-Bucks for the game to buy more stuff, and they're at home currently while you're purchasing this, screaming at the TV in frustration because they can't win a Fortnite match or whatever, that is a problem. That is a major problem.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think, like, let's not get on the, you know, I'm old now, so now I'm on my soapbox, and things were different in my day thing. But like, I think there is an element of like, Petso, you mentioned there when you were a kid, you were playing Sonic the Hedgehog, and the complexity of Sonic the Hedgehog is go from left to right and get to the end, and like that was it. Like you could maybe explore the level, or you could do whatever, but like there wasn't an awful lot to be wrong out of not Spider-Man, Sonic 2 at the end of the day. But with Fortnite and games of service as a whole, they are super predatory. And there is good examples out there. Don't get me wrong. It's not like painting them all with one brush. But for the most part, it is a tactic, especially when it's adopted by big corporations, to wring as much money out of one product as humanly possible. And they're going to put in all those hooks to capture kids, to get their parents' credit cards on file, and do all these things. And I have to wonder, because we're talking about addiction, like, is that going to have a major side effect on the youth gamers of today? Because the main games they're playing are Fortnite and whatever. They're screaming at each other in their rooms at a very early age, like 4 or 5 even. And they are feeling bullying because they don't have the latest Fortnite skin that the other guys have. And like, there's an awful lot of like insidious horribleness about the model as a whole, that you think that maybe this is going to foster even more addiction, because they're almost like they're playing gambling games in their rooms every night, like.
They're creating situations for kids nowadays where like you're competing all the time, where like games from the 80s and 90s, and I know I'm showing my age, but there was no competition in them. It was like, if I got to a certain level, I was telling my friends how they could get to another level. But with Fortnite and these types of games, there's more competition, and that's you can be addicted to that separately to be addicted to actually playing the game, where you have to get the win, so you're screaming and shouting at the telly. We've seen all the rage quit things like on YouTube with FIFA and everything as well. So like, that's an addiction in itself, and obviously you've got like some sort of like rage issues or something that you need to deal with separately. But that's, and like the parents buying the credit, like to buy like a skin, like, it's just bad. Everything's just bad form now.
And that's to make sure, like, that's the same argument I hear, like, my friends who have kids that say, you know, like, their 3-year-old is walking around with their own mobile phone. And I'm not judging, by the way. I have no kids. I can't, of course, judge. I'm not. It's just funny. It's an observational thing where, like, their kids walking around with, like, their own phone or their own iPad or whatever. And I'm like, wow, your kid is, like, 3. You bought it a phone. Does that thing, can that thing make calls? Like, oh, yeah. It's like, what the hell are you doing buying a 3 or 4-year-old a phone? It's like, all of their friends have one. If they don't have one, they get bullied, you know? And it's just like, I get the argument, but, like, and that's what's happening with Fortnite, is that, like, you know, the new packs come out, and then every parent has to go into GameStop or other retailers in order to buy the credit to get their kid things so that they don't get ridiculed in school. And if, God forbid, you put a foot down and say no, your kid will get ridiculed in school. And it's like, it's creating a horrible cycle, and that will create addiction. That's like, I have to keep on top of this. I have to keep on top of this. because like my social status is in question now.
It was the same. Like if we were bringing back, I suppose I'm guessing now you guys either collected Pogs, Boglins,
Pokemon cards.
Pokemon cards and obviously the Premier League cards and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
They were our Fortnite. You know, that was we had to buy them. And
100%.
Mom would be like, they're €7 in the shop. I'm not buying them. It was the same thing. So like, it's more modern, but at the end of the day, it is Pogs and it is that stuff that we used to throw around the playground.
That's incredible. Actually, you mentioned that, and you were 100% right. This has been around since the 70s probably, but like I remember in the 90s bugging my mother and father every time they went to a newsagent's to buy me the Premier League stickers for my Premier League sticker book, which to anybody who's not Irish or English is essentially a soccer sticker book where you pick up packets of random stickers of players from various teams to put into a book. And I remember begging my parents, like, no, please, you have to get them. And they turn around to me and go, you don't even like soccer. I was like, I know, but I need, to this day, I don't like soccer, but I had to have that book.
Yeah, I was the same. I didn't watch soccer or any interest, and I had to have these stickers. And you'd be out the back of school, and like, you know, you'd be swapping them, but your jacket be like that. Be like you were trying to sell some like A-class drugs or something.
If you got a Wayne Rooney. But yeah, no, it's for real. Now let's get back onto the topic of addiction in order to kind of get it, because I have a couple of questions I want to ask you guys as well that I kind of pulled from different sources. And the first of which is, what do you think it is about video games that makes certain people not be able to stop? And when I say certain people, I mean like the kind of use cases and test cases that would spur something like the World Health Organization to make this an addiction. Like, your worst case scenario gamers who are playing like World of Warcraft for like 4 days straight and, nearly dying from dehydration, or like, like these extreme cases. What do you think it is about a video game in particular that would make somebody, just do that for so long, or just to not be able to stop?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's kind of a mix between everything we sort of mentioned previously, and then like it could be one of two things. It could be one where it's not an addiction; it's just somebody really, really just likes that game, and for the 40 to 100 hours they're going to play it. That's it, then. Or it could be the fact that they're like, oh, I can't. What if somebody, like you said, World of Warcraft? What if my friends level up higher than I am? I need to go in and get more levels than they do, so that they and it's that social thing again. Where I have to have the best weapons and stuff. It's just a different type of game.
That's actually very true. I'd say in World of Warcraft and stuff like that, because I think a lot of argument for people when remember you brought up earlier social exclusion, where you were saying that like video games can stop you from actually having real impactful human contact with people, and it can. Like a lot of counter argument will be, well, I made better friends online than I would have ever made, in my town, and I get that.
You meet them face to face, you don't know how to talk to them.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Microphone, a headset on.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
I was going to bring that up earlier.
But like, there's an element of like, I can be my best self here, whereas I don't like myself here. In the real world. So yeah, sorry, Shane, go ahead.
No, I was going to bring it up earlier, but you were talking about the social anxiety and how people can use games to escape that. And in one sense, they can be social on games, but also, like Petso just said, they can use that to further escape their social anxiety because they're hidden behind a headset and an avatar and I am an orc with super cool armor and an axe.
With 700 hours put in to make this helmet flame up or whatever it is.
And I look cool and sound cool that way, but in real life I'm just a guy or a young lad or a young girl or whatever, and I feel socially awkward and I don't feel good talking to people. But if I'm hidden behind an avatar, I'm, come out, Michelle.
It opens up doors conversationally and socially, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Which is another thing you can hide behind, because you can get addicted to, I am my best self when I am using my online avatar.
Yeah. That's very true. Now, the last question I wanted to kind of ask around our video games addicted before we kind of give our last kind of wrap up on the topic is, should video games be thought of in the same realm in terms of their addictiveness as substances or as other, let's say, participation addictions such as gambling? Like, do we feel that video games fall into the same bracket, or are they like a less, let's say, serious one? Or like, where do we feel video games sit in the pantheon of addiction, like ranging from like gambling to heroin? Do you know what I mean?
I get you. I think video games, number one, nowadays, definitely can fall into the gambling addiction category with the likes of your FIFA packs and your Fortnite skins and your
it's dopamine, as you mentioned earlier. It's just dopamine hits, like even without the boxes.
I've seen customers that come into my store, I won't name anybody or anything, but like they come into my store like once, twice a week and think nothing of dropping 60, 70 quid on FIFA coins or whatever to go home. And then they're right back in the very next week, and it's constant. Like, they might only buy FIFA, the one game they buy every year is FIFA, but by the time the next FIFA comes around, they've spent like 3,000-4,000 euro on that game.
Yeah.
And they think nothing of it, which is weird. Like.
Yeah.
But I don't blame gaming. This is I'm just trying to think of a way to explain what I mean here. I don't blame gaming for what Shane's saying, because they're not playing the game in the sense that it's not like it's not like Batman Arkham Asylum, and it's not like, oh, I have to play it, I'm addicted to it, I'm going to play it over and over and over again and forget everybody, I'm not going to talk to everyone. It's you're literally buying a pack and opening the pack in a gambling sense, which is like such a small part of what's in the game, but it's not, I wouldn't class that as gaming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it is
it's
gambling.
The corporation twisting the game to their needs.
Yeah,
you know?
so like in the new basketball one that came out last year, they have slot machines. Where that's where you get your players. Like, that's gambling. Like there's no
100%.
I wouldn't say that's gaming. That is gambling. It's 100% gambling. And the same with the cards from FIFA and stuff like that. Like, that's it's hard to say that gaming is an addiction, because the things that are in games are addictions. Gambling is an addiction, and it's in our games, right?
Well, I think they are. That is layering an addiction on top of an addiction at that point. That's like gaming in itself, in its rawest form. Like your Sonic 2 is still addictive because you're getting that dopamine hit when it tells you well done, or you know, hey, I'm doing really well, or whatever it is that you get that like lights those neurons in your brain. But when big corporations like EA or Take-Two come along and they say, okay, how can we squeeze as much money out of the population with this one thing? Let's bring in, you know, gambling techniques to now sneak in gambling addiction on top of their gaming addiction, and now you've got this like addiction squared situation going on.
Yes, definitely. It is. It's like, look, that's one side of it. I think like anything can be addictive. You know what I mean? Like, I can get addicted to, I don't know,
hot tubs.
Hot tubs. I can get addicted to hot tubs in the morning, and then that and then that becomes something that I need to seek assistance for. Do you know what I mean? If anything, like, you can get addicted to. I can get addicted to drumstick lollipops. I could get addicted to cans of Monster, to caffeine, to cigarettes.
I did get addicted to cans of Monster. I had to wean myself off, actually.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you get addicted. The reason I started drinking coffee in college was to stop me drinking energy drinks, because I was starting to drink so much of them when I went back to college as a mature student. I didn't have the energy to sit through all these lectures and stuff in the first year. My body was not used to, or my brain was not used to all this concentration that I needed.
I think in that cocktail, the energy drink probably wasn't the problem. It's probably the vodka, Shane. Like, you know, but no, I get you. Like, anything that gives you the good feels can obviously get to that point. Now, one thing I do want to say, and especially to anybody at home, and, you know, tell me to shut up if I need to, but like, don't listen to this and think and question yourself too harshly and go like, Jesus, I do play like, you know, 2 hours a night of a video game, and when I add that up, that's 14 hours a week when I could be doing X, Y, and Z. Like, my status has always been, if you enjoy what you're doing and you're not harming anyone, you're not wasting your life. You're not doing, like, I tell myself that all the time when I'm playing games. I'm just like, this is what I like to do. Like, I'm enjoying myself, you know, like, so therefore my life is well spent. But like, this is an opportunity for all of us, and I'm going to go around to all of us before we leave this off, and at home I invite you to do the same thing. Check in on yourself, and like, just objectively, like, don't allow any of your bias to cloud your judgment, but just ask yourself, do I have any kind of an addiction? And if I was to ask myself this, you know, I'm giving myself as many graces as I need to, of course, but like, I think, yes, there's an element of addiction there when it comes to me with video games. And it's like, I often find I'll put on a game and I'm like, I'm really excited about coming home and playing games, like your Petso, you said earlier. And then within an hour, I'm like, I just want to watch YouTube now. You know, I got the fix of what I was wanting. I wasn't even really wanting to do anything when I actually sat down to do it. So maybe there's an element there. But I do feel like I do still have the ability to say, no, I've played too much this week, I should really get up and go for a pint with the guys, or I should go get a coffee, or I should have a podcast, or like stepping away from it to not make it my entire life. That's what I consider my bar, my personal bar. And we all have our personal bars, but like if I was to go around the room, like Shane, do you feel like objectively you could say that you have any kind of addiction when it comes to video games?
A little bit, yeah. I'd be similar to yourself in that I do check in. It is once I do enjoy it, and once I'm not harming myself or others, I find I'm quite happy. But there is those times where, like, I have been sitting down to play games, and I'm like, I have a mountain of stuff to do, and that thing we all say to ourselves, just one more match, or just one more level. If I just do this next mission, then I'll stop and I'll go do the things I need.
That's procrastinating.
That's partly procrastinating as well. But sometimes I find it's the video game that's doing. It's not me even. Sometimes I'll procrastinate doing other things. But when I'm playing a video game, I find it so much easier to stay doing that. To step away and do the thing that I need to do, whatever that may be. Walk my dog, do my dishes, laundry, whatever it is I need to do. Work on the podcast, edit. You know what I mean? Like, it's just terribly easy to stay ingrained in the video game. And it's a lot easier to step away from like watching TV or something.
Yeah, I think that's like having an addictive personality to a degree as well, though, because like I'm the very same when it comes to like drinking pints in the pub, where I'm just like, I say to myself I'm going to have 2 games. And then I say to myself, I'm going to have 2 pints. I always end up with 14 of each, So, like, it's you get caught up in the moment, and you're just like, and then you step away after a while and you go, oh, I can recognize that I shouldn't have played as many as I did, that's the key point. But Petso, what about you, mate? Do you think that you could like objectively look at your like life habits and say, do I or do I not have any kind of, even on a low level or a high level, an addiction to games?
For me, I don't think it's addiction. I think I use it as a crutch where, like, this is my space. Like, where, what I mean? I love this room. Is like, we only like bought our first home this year, and we're very, very lucky to have it. And this is the first time I've ever had my own room where this is my area, my safe spot. And I could be playing Total War Warhammer on one screen, and I could be watching YouTube on the other one, and I'm just chilling out. And I'll chill out for an hour or two, then I go downstairs, have a cup of tea, watch a bit of telly with the missus, and like that's my like working day evening, so I never feel like I need, like, the space is giving me, like, I don't need it, but I know it's there, and I'm happy that it's there. But for me, it's always been a bit of a crutch. I've had a shitty day, or you're not feeling the greatest. It's nice to be able to sit down and drift off into these worlds. And
I'd almost argue in your use case there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like I would almost argue that like it's less of a crutch from listening to you, and it's more like take a step back from crutch, and it's more of a tool. It's almost like it's how you release your tension from the day or whatever.
It's because, like, look, we're all human, and day-to-day stuff can be very frustrating, and sometimes you ever have that conversation with somebody, and then afterwards you go, oh, I should have said this, should have said that, should have said this.
All the time.
I just feel like gaming gets that out of my head, and I'm not dwelling on stuff. I can come past things quicker, because I've so kind of zoned out for an hour, that way. So
100%,
For me, I don't like. For me, it's closer to like something to do with anxiety and depression than it would be addictive. But as you guys made brilliant points where, like, there is some people, like, companies are putting addictive things in our games, and that's what's ruining gaming. And that's why gaming's getting a bad name at the moment for a lot of stuff.
100%. It's like if you could make a comparison, and it's probably a very loose comparison, but it's like in America more so than in Europe, where like everything is laced with sugar, and you get a sugar addiction when you're eating your cereal, and you don't realize you're addicted to sugar. You think you're addicted to the cereal. No, you're not addicted to the video game. You're addicted to the gambling. In a lot of cases, it's
exactly.
But that's not to say you're not addicted to the game. That's just like there is an element of like you can split this down into multiple addictions.
I thought of a good example for you of Fortnite addiction. My friend's daughter is mad into Fortnite, and she's about 9 or 10 years old, and she's mad into it, always playing it. And he told me at one time she was playing a game, and when he came in, she had been so into this game that she wouldn't go to the toilet, so she sat there and wet herself while she was playing, because she was so addicted to that game. She couldn't put it down for 2 seconds to go to the toilet. Now, I know the game is live and you can't pause it, but look, if you have to go that bad,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And he told me that, and I was like, Jesus, that's crazy that these kids are that into it. You know what I mean? Like a game that can be restarted in 2 seconds. You know,
like that makes my heart bleed. Obviously, like, you know, the poor child. But like, I again, I don't know kids, so take my word with a pinch of salt. But like, it's kind of like that's, I would imagine, the point where you see that as a parent and you go, okay, there's a problem. You know, okay, this is, I probably need to interact here in some way. You know, because like that's a crazy story.
Yeah, I remember David told me that last year, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's crazy that there's something.
Yeah.
But even when we go to the events, the kids are so mad into Fortnite and like Rocket League and stuff like that. Like, it's insane to see them, how happy they get when we put it up on stage, and you know, they know all the dances and they know all the thing. It's a whole different ballgame to what we grew up with.
Yeah, it's marketed within an inch of its life, and they are doing a supremely good job at it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, someone definitely got
Scary.
Scarily good job at it. But like,
yeah, it is.
But that's where we are. I think we can pretty much, and correct me if I'm wrong, say like as a cohesive whole here that I think we kind of got to the point of video games are an addictive substance. Like, you know, and like everything else in the world that can be considered addictive, there is going to be levels, and depending on who you are, depending on your social situation, depending on your mental and the physical situations, you know, you may have, your mileage will vary in terms of the addiction. But it is undeniable that there is elements there, even on the most base level of video games, dopamine hits, whatever it is. Yes, I think it probably should be at least talked about when the conversation of addiction comes up.
Yeah, and just as we're wrapping up, I would say as well, if you know somebody who is constantly on a computer game and you think, Jesus, they're addicted to that, or you think that they're not being sociable or something, you feel like you're worried about them, and pick up the second controller, and you'll be surprised how talkative they can be.
That's actually a good point. That's
come down to their level instead of judging them about being on the game all the time.
That is a great point. That is a very good point. Like, because I had that coming up as well. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but no, like, it's such a good point, because like I used to shut myself out a lot with video games, because I grew up in the country in the middle of nowhere, and I had no friends nearby, and I had video games, and that's kind of part of the reason I'm so into them. But like, I got so used to that when I did move into cities, I kind of had two modes. It was either, you know, sit in my room and be alone and play video games, or be out in the pub and be super sociable, but I'm plastered drunk. And that was the only way I could do social situations, was being plastered drunk. And I had a horrible, speaking of addiction, I had a horrible alcohol addiction for many years. And now I've kind of tapered it back to, like, you know, if I didn't drink for a month, I wouldn't care. But there was a time where I couldn't go a day without drink. And I you know, I'm not saying it was, obviously people out there have had much worse addictions than I did, but like, I can recognize that, where it's like, when I got to that point of other people, like, I started living with people, and then they joined me in the sitting room when I was playing a game or whatever, and then all of a sudden I became their friends, or friends of their friends are now my friends, and all of a sudden I was more social. And it's 100% like, if just because somebody is playing a video game and that's how they want to spend their night, that doesn't necessarily mean that what they're doing is wrong and what you're doing is wrong. Yes, one can be as bad as the other, but maybe, as you said, come down to their level and try interacting with them where they're most comfortable.
Yeah, 100%. I think, yes. So like, if you're ever worried about anybody, about any situation, always sit down and chat with them. And to talk to a gamer is to pick up player 2. That is the key, is to pick up that extra controller. And even if you're not interested in what they're playing, join in any way, shape, or form as you can. And I think you'll relate. One thing with my own daughter is we used to bond over Lego. She wouldn't tell me about school or talk to me or anything like that. And then we played with Lego. She'd tell me her whole day. So I just kind of find like that's the way you find, if somebody is this is their thing, then that's when you talk to them, is when they're playing that,
bonding,
playing that or doing that.
Yeah,
it's bonding. Yeah, for sure. It is a good one. So let's leave it at that. So I think that was a fantastic discussion, and thank you both for joining me on that conversation, because I'm really happy we did this now in terms of bringing the topics around, because that was super enjoyable. I do want to preface everything though with, we are three chuckleheads sitting in our respective spare rooms talking about this from a very white male perspective. Like, you know, we're not going to cover every opinion in the world, and we can't, and we're not educated to do so, but I think that this was a very constructive conversation, and I think we all got a little something out of it. But if you at home have any feedback on anything we were talking about, personal experiences, if you disagreed with what we said, you know, obviously do be nice, but do let us know in the comments down below. Let us know in our socials over on the Casual Game Community on Facebook, and pop into our Discord. It'll be down below. We want to hear from you, and we want you guys to be part of these conversations as we go forward. So one thing I will start doing, if we do start getting comments about each topic, the next week I will bring those comments up, and we will do a small segment where we give you guys the voice of, well, we talked about this last week, what did the community say? So if you want to be a part of the show, that's how you do it. Just get into those comments and we will do our best to bring those to the surface, if you aren't being an absolute word Nazi about it, okay?
Yeah.